One of my favorite scenes in any movie, in lines, in any film, is from The Last Samurai, which is one of my favorite movies. And there's this great scene towards the end when the main character, who's played by Tom Cruise, is there about to face impending destruction at the hands of an overwhelming military force, a technologically advanced military force. But they are holding to the way of honor, to the traditional ways, to the way of the samurai. And Katsumoto, the head of the samurai, who's next to him, says, "Do you think that a man can change his destiny?" And Tom Cruise's character, after a lifetime of experience, replies, "I think a man does what he can until his destiny is revealed."
You believe a man can change his destiny?
I think a man does what he can until his destiny is revealed.
Brothers and sisters, life in this world is war. There is no escaping it. Life in dunya is struggle. It will necessitate hardship, difficulty, and that necessitates strength and endurance, persistence, strength and courage. There is no utopia in this world, in this existence, in this temporal dimension. That is for akhirah, that is for eternity. So if anybody thinks, and we're fed a lot of these ideas throughout our culture in which we're continually taught to seek paradise here in this world, and that is never going to be the case. Utopia cannot be found and cannot be established in this world, except with the power and divine support, as our Prophet ﷺ taught us, when Jesus ﷺ returns and when Mahdi ﷺ is established, then there will be a period on earth which will be paradisal. It will be connected to paradise. But short of that, we will never establish utopia on this earth through our own ingenuity, through our own technological advancement, through our own cleverness. It'll never happen. Life in this world is war and struggle, and it necessitates rising to the occasion. Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, "Fighting has been enjoined upon you, even though you dislike it. Yet it may be that you dislike a thing which is beneficial for you, and you like a thing which is harmful to you. And Allah knows while you do not know." This is from Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah in the Holy Quran, verse 216. And in the same surah, later Allah Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, "And if Allah did not repel some people by others, the earth would be overrun with corruption. And Allah is the possessor of grace for the worlds." This is also from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 251. Now we all have hardships, difficulties, challenges in our lives that we have to face. And your struggles are destined. They are destined to enable you, to empower you to evolve, to awaken, to grow, to develop, to become what you can and were destined to become. Your struggles are destined. And wherever you face your particular challenges in life, accept them, embrace them, and rise to what they necessitate. You may find hardships and difficulties with regards to your health. That may be your battle, or one of your battles. It may be with regards to money. It may be with your family and with your marriage. It may be in regards to your faith and your belief and your religion. Wherever your particular struggles are, they are destined and they are meant to be used as the opportunities that they in reality are to propel you forward, to become what you were meant to become. Each one of these challenges, each one of these hardships, each one of your struggles require you to evolve, to rise, and to awaken within you the potential that exists as a true Khalifa, as a true deputy of Allah Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now war is twofold. There are two dimensions to war as in everything else. There's an outer dimension to it, there's an inner dimension to it. Sometimes the enemy is external. If you're actually in a physical war, which is typically not the case for most people, you have to face a physical enemy, right, on the battlefield. But oftentimes the enemy may still be external, but not particularly on the battlefield with weapons and guns or swords. You may have to face and stand up to an oppressive enemy. Yet the battle may not be with weapons, but with knowledge, with information, with words. So there's always an external component to war, to battle, to the fight for justice, for goodness, for light. And then there is also the internal dimension, the internal enemy, the enemy within, the nafs, the ego, the self. The outer battle, the outer war, the outer enemy, that is the practical dimension of things. And for that, you've got to enable yourself and empower yourself to succeed on that front through practical means. The inner war, the inner battle, is a spiritual war. And that also requires training and development. And we must, as humans, as believers, concurrently engage in both. You cannot have one without the other. You cannot engage in practical warfare, practical battles and struggles, without developing the internal strength and purity of intention, the cleansing and the purification of the self, to enable you to not taint and poison your external activity with darkness, with negativity, with ego. So the first aspect of war and battle in life, whatever you're facing, is internal. First and foremost, we have to engage sincerely in the purification of the self. This in Arabic is known as tazkiyatun nafs. In the faith, in the religion, this means the purification of the self from the self. The purification of the self from selfishness, self-centeredness, from arrogance, from anger. And then when we look at the life of our Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited engaging in warfare until his companions were first purified of darkness and negativity within themselves. Otherwise, their external war, their practical efforts would have been tainted, would have been poisoned. Okay, the battery in my light just died and I don't have time to replace it now, so we're just going to push through. You cannot wage a just war if you are yourself not yet just. We always think we're just, but so long as there is self and ego in anything we do, our efforts will be tainted. We must first establish purity of self, right? And this often has to be done concurrently because the battle will necessitate the purification of the self. We must strive for internal purity and purity of intention so that our struggles are not tainted by negativity, right? Because if they are, that will result in tyrannical war. And we end up becoming the very enemy that we're often seeking to fight against. So again, first is purification of the self. Purification of the self from the self, which means purification of the self from ego, from arrogance, from anger, from selfishness, from self-righteousness and pride. These are cardinal sins. These are major sins. And if we carry these, and if these negative and toxic emotions taint our action, everything we do will be destructive rather than constructive. We must purify ourselves from negativity. And this also means the cultivation of compassion and mercy so as to not transgress bounds. We must always stay within the bounds of activity so that we never transgress and fall into tyranny and oppression. This is a religion of mercy. This is a path of justice and of light. We must not succumb to the lower self that will always lead to darkness and evil. I'll give you an example. Think of how many times in a film you've seen that a despot, a tyrant, somebody that's been oppressing a group of people, finally fails and loses and he's thrown to the mob. What do? Right? They tear him to pieces often. And that is entirely unacceptable for believers. That is not the way believers can behave. We do not succumb to our anger and our frustration, our rage. We must always act with restraint, with reservation, with excellence in anything and everything we do. The mob typically hasn't worked on themselves to purify themselves. And so they give in to their lower emotions and to rage. We cannot do that. We must not allow that. So once we've engaged, fully committed to the path of self-purification, the path of reflection, the path of introspection, then we should begin taking action on the external level, on the outer plane. Only then can we act effectively in the world. And of course, I am not advocating physical violence of any kind. There's no place for that, not in this day and age, unless you have to defend yourself, your family, your property, those for which you are responsible. Now, there's no shortage of battles that must be fought for goodness, against evil, against darkness. We are caught in a war between light and dark, between good and evil. And this has been the case from the beginning of life on earth, from the beginning of our creation as human beings. For us to pretend and to put our heads in the sand as if this is not happening is an egregious error on our part. We cannot close our eyes and be blind to the realities of this world because injustice abounds, tyranny and oppression abound. There will always be a battle for righteousness within human culture. There will always be a battle to pull us towards light and away from darkness and evil. And frankly, we cannot remain asleep. And your personal struggles and challenges will necessitate which battles you may have to fight. I remember the words of my Shaykh, Qaddasallahu Sirrahu. May Allah Almighty raise and sanctify his spirit. When he turned to a group of students and he raised his hands and said, fight for goodness. Fight for goodness. Fight for truth, for light, for excellence, and fight with excellence. He also, Qaddasallahu Sirrahu, once said that in the time of Mahdi alayhi salam, the believers will be wielding swords of light. Right? This is way before Star Wars, in fact. And it may be where somehow Lucas got the idea for the lightsabers in this film. It's a beautiful image, a beautiful metaphor. Swords of light. What does light represent? Knowledge. knowledge. The believers will fight with faith and with ilm, with knowledge, with iman and with ilm. That is the fight for goodness. The fight for truth must be fought with truth. And to fight for truth, we must be aligned with truth. We must be aligned with the Prophet of Allah, the last and final messenger to humanity. We must be aligned with Kitabullah, the Book of Allah, the Holy Quran, the last and final revelation to humanity. We must do our best to follow in his footsteps, peace and blessings upon him and upon all the prophets and messengers of God, without whom we are lost as a human species. We must do our best to follow the Book of Allah in the way of the Prophet and to remain close to those who are sincerely following in the footsteps of the Prophet. These are known as the Ahlul Bayt of the Messenger, the family, the companions of the Prophet, the members of his household, those who are carrying his prophetic secret, the secret of sincerity, the secret of love, the secret of light in connection to the source of love, light, strength, and success, Allah Almighty. We must, as human beings and as believers, as people of faith, seek to establish goodness and justice in the world through whatever means are available to us, through knowledge. And so going back to the point of this, brothers and sisters, you have battles, you have struggles, you have challenges that you must face in your life. Your challenges, your struggles are destined. And they are destined to enable you, if you use them, to become what you were meant to become. A true deputy, a true Khalifa, a true vicegerent and representative of the divine. And we must, through our struggles, awaken the capacity and the potential for that type of sacred servanthood to Allah Almighty. Our challenges will necessitate the awakening of human potential. May Allah Almighty guide you, myself, and keep us on the firm and straight path to your divine and eternal success. His strength be with you. Fi amanullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brothers and sisters, I hope you enjoy these videos. Please subscribe, like, share, and then head over to our website where there are extensive additional resources, a free mini course, guided meditations, tools to support you upon the path, and that can enable you to not just to survive, but ultimately to thrive in the world that we live in. To your divine and eternal success. Fi amanullah.